Alright, so this is going to be part 13 to What If Tanjiro Learned the Breath of the Moon. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
Bow in the presence of greatness, 'cause right now that has forsaken us. You should be honored by my lateness, that I would even show up to this fake shit. So go ahead, go nuts, go.
Alright, so in the last part we had just gotten done with Tanjiro defeating another moon. And with that being said, I gotta say a few things. First off, this series is almost to a close. I hate to say it, but we've covered the majority of the manga by now. We've covered over 120 chapters, I believe, or around there, and that's out of 202 chapters in total. So we only have a few more arcs until it's pretty much done and over. That being said, it's probably going to be my first What If to completion. But yeah, after this series is done, I'm going to re-edit the first episode and then make it part of a full video that contains each part. So that's going to be the thing. It's probably going to be a few hours long, so look forward to that. But anyways, let's get back to the story and continue off where we left off. So we had just gotten done with Tanjiro killing the upper moon and him being in the field. This is when he notices something strange. Nezuko is out in the field with him and she's not dying. This is because it's dawn at this point and he's super worried. But nothing seems to happen to her and she's actually smiling. She starts to speak. She says, "Thank the gods that you're okay," and both of them start crying, knowing that she's regaining a bit of humanity back. And at this point, you understand that Nezuko has conquered the sun. She's no longer affected by the rays of the sun anymore. This is when Tanjiro gets a letter from, well, Tamio, basically explaining that using the samples that Tanjiro gave her, she was actually able to cure a demon and turn him back into a human. Now, they're not ready for Nezuko just yet, but they're really close to that. That being said, because she can now walk during the daylight, she's now a target for Muzan even more than she was before. Because remember, Muzan, he wants to conquer the sun, and all this time he's been looking for a blue spider lily, but obviously those don't really exist, and they're more, I guess, mythological to say the least. And therefore, since she is still technically connected to him, he can tell when something like this happens, and therefore he's going after Nezuko. But back at the village, this is when the group starts to rest up, as all of them are pretty much hurt. Now in the manga, it takes around 3 days for both the Mist Pillar and the Love Pillar to recover from their injuries. I think Tanjiro would probably take around the same amount of time, as he is getting a lot stronger. At this point, his potential is becoming more and more exponential as we go on, if that makes sense. But after the 3 days are up, he decides to stay within the village for a little bit longer, as he wants to get his equipment done and ready. As if you remember from the beginning of this arc, that's the main reason why he's coming here. Not only did he find a fantastic sword from a very, very long time ago being restored at this point and given to Tanjiro, but he's also getting a short sword for him. This is for his new breath style that he's trying to create. Now, it isn't too rare for offshoots of different breath styles to actually exist, because remember, it's actually pretty common. As you know, all the breath styles come from the breath of the sun, and all the offshoots are just from that. Hell, even Onosuke made his own breath style. That being said, we're on the verge of something pretty great here. So a few days later would pass, and this is when Tanjiro will get his equipment. He asked for special glasses for a particular reason, to block out light. Now, the reason why he's doing this is because of the way that his new breath style is going to work in his mind, blinding foes. And because of that, he gets this new idea of making these glasses for him. Not only that, but he also gets a short sword, like I said before, and the new restored legendary sword that he gets here. So it took multiple swordsmiths to actually create some of the things that Tanjiro is getting, but before Tanjiro actually leaves, this is when the chief of the swordsmith village actually tells him something. He tells him if his glasses are ever lost or broken in some way, that he could use some sort of transparent cloth around him to kind of reduce the light. This is similar to in real life when people would actually look at eclipses in a certain way by putting a piece of paper over a kind of box to look through it and see the silhouette or outline of the eclipse. So it's a similar concept. Eventually, after some time, they actually do get back to the headquarters. There, a special meeting for the pillars takes place. They talk about how demons have not been seen that often anymore. This is the calm before the storm. Because Muzan is aware that Nezuko has conquered the sun, right now they're building up their forces, and so the Demon Slayer should do the same. Now, this purpose of the meeting is one of two things. First off, addressing the marks that the different Demon Slayers are getting, and those who have already unlocked it. Those that already unlocked it are the following: the Mist Pillar, the Love Pillar, and the Pillar of the Moon. Now, that being said, when did this happen? Well, there's two ways to know if someone unlocks the mark. First off, the mark actually happening around their face area and somewhere along their body. One of those two options. Next is that their sword will actually turn to a bright red, which actually did happen to Tanjiro in the last part when he infused Nezuko's blood into his sword. Not only that, but it can come in the form of a birthmark, and therefore, Tanjiro's birthmark that he already has, so they already know that he has it. The second purpose of the meeting is the pillars training the other Demon Slayers. Because pillars normally only train their successors, this is a very rare and opportune moment. With them having the time before the big battle, they will have just enough time to train those that are below them, so they could get their ranks up higher. So each pillar has their own kind of task to do to help out in their training. First off, the Sound Pillar, Uzi Tengen, will train on stamina. Next, it will be Mitsuri, which will focus on flexibility. After that, it will be the Mist Pillar that will work on agility, the Snake Pillar, Obanai, working on sword technique, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. Each of them are kind of just working on their own thing, but there's two that aren't really, and the first one being the Water Pillar. He speaks out loud to the others that he doesn't want to be here, that you guys can make any plan you want, but he doesn't belong with them. He isn't part of them. He is different, you could say. This makes the Wind Pillar rather angry, and they don't know why he's doing this. The Wind Pillar thinks that the Water Pillar thinks he's better than him, or better than the rest, and there are a few people just not really saying anything. The first two are Tanjiro and the Stone Pillar. But as the Water Pillar is about to leave, the Stone Pillar actually speaks up. He's crying, and he just asks them to stay a bit longer so that they could finish their plan. But he doesn't, and he just walks away. Now, Tanjiro isn't gonna be too much of a teacher or a sensei in this case, as he's still, rather not experienced compared to the others, as they've been doing this for years, while Tanjiro really hasn't. At this point, it's only been a year or so him being in the Demon Slayer Corp, while the others have been in this for a bit longer. And keep in mind that he's also been a pillar for the least amount of time compared to the rest. Now, keep in mind that during this entire meeting, Tanjiro didn't really say much. Instead, he was focusing on all the different pillars and things like that, gaining all the knowledge that he could from this meeting. Now, this isn't really that normal for Tanjiro, and originally in canon, he wasn't part of this meeting, so this is all new information. This is when the Wind Pillar actually speaks up to Tanjiro, almost threatening a little bit, and he says, "Aren't you going to do anything? Aren't you going to say anything? You aren't like this normally. At least that's not the first impression I got from you." Because remember, the first impression that he got from Tanjiro was him trying to save his sister and not really being that successful. Now, Tanjiro just he looks at him and just says, "I'm just analyzing the situation and seeing the best way to move forward. I'm not experienced as you guys, so I don't think I could teach the other Demon Slayers too much information, but I'm willing to help in any way I can." The Wind Pillar is taken back by this, as to him, Tanjiro has completely changed. Not only does he look a lot different, because at this point he would have gotten his new outfit, his own unique pillar uniform, which he would have gotten from his blacksmiths that were in the village, as a tribute to him saving them. Now, I don't have an image of it yet, or really a design, but this is something you guys asked for, as I did make a poll whether or not I should give Tanjiro a unique pillar design, and you guys said yes, and that you want a design that's completely different than his normal one. Now that in mind, I'm not going to completely change it, as I'm going to maybe take some of the colors that from the original and use it, but I got to come up with a design, or you guys can tell me down below how do you want it to look like. But yeah, this is when the wind pillar basically says, I don't need your help. The others might though. I could tell you're different. And Tanjiro says, well, the help of others is what got me here. It made me stronger in every way I could think of. The knowledge that they gave me let me create my own breath style. And this is when the room is kind of taken back. They question what could it even be about, or what could it be based off of. And Tanjiro elaborates on this. He tells them that he took pieces of different breath styles that he saw in the past, including his own. The main inspiration for this is, well, his own breath style, that being the breath of the moon, the breath of the flame, and the breath of the sound, with a little bit of the breath of thunder mixed in as well. As Tanjiro is saying this, he thinks back all the way to the red light district arc, in where he caught Kojiro's sword and made that huge blinding light. Now Kojiro is in the room right now, and he smiles as he knows what he's thinking about, as he was there when he first got inspired. So Kojiro speaks up within the room. He tells them that Tanjiro's right. He's a fast learner and was able to adapt some of his breath style into his. Tanjiro was able to copy some of the different forms of Breath of the Flame almost instantly. Well, not instantly, but really fast. Combine that with other forms that he knows, such as the Breath of the Fire God, because of his memory with his father. He's able to easily adapt. He tells us to the rest, and he says it might be a good idea to at least show him some of your other moves, as Tanjiro might be someone that might be able to use all the breath styles, or at least a few others. This is when Tengen laughs out loud, because he remembers Tanjiro when he first fought with him at the red light district. He wasn't really up for him to be a pillar just yet, but he wanted to see Tanjiro flourish, so he gave him the opportunity and agreed for him to become a pillar. And he sees now that his decision was right. Tanjiro became something almost unparalleled. His growth has been almost exponential at this point, coming from almost barely touching another pillar like the Mist Pillar to almost surpassing him at this point. And this is when Tengen says, I see. You already mastered Breath of the Moon, so you're incorporating more and more different breath styles. I see what you're doing. You're very smart, Tanjiro. I never thought of it myself, because I never thought I needed it. But clearly, there's something to be learned here. So with that, the meeting is adjourned. So the following plans are in motion. The first is that the pillars will start to train the lower ranks of the Demon Corp so that they become stronger altogether. Next, Tanjiro is going to do a little bit of his training himself, that being his new breath style as well as training new recruits. Now what I mean by this is that he's going to take on the best of the Demon Corp right now. So anyone that is outstanding or is a lot better than the rest, he will take and train them with all the different breath styles he knows, so that they could learn a little bit of his breath style, that being Breath of the Moon, and his new one that he wants to kind of share with the rest, that being the Breath of the Eclipse. So that's what they're going to do in the near future. But at this point, after the meeting is done, Tanjiro tries to find the water pillar. I believe his name is Giyu. So after some time, he does actually find him, and he is as stoic as ever, as he doesn't really talk much. And this is where Tanjiro would tell him, why did you leave the meeting? And he tells him that he isn't like the rest of the pillars, so it wouldn't be fair for him to join, as he's never gonna get the mark like the rest. And this is where Tanjiro says, but you're a pillar, you're just as strong as the rest. And this is where Giyu basically tells him the story on how he actually survived during the final selection. He tells Tanjiro that he never really completed it, as he had to be saved by one of his friends and never really killed a demon during that time. He talks about his friend Sabito. If you don't remember, this is the person during the training for Tanjiro in canon, and where him and the other girl, Makino, I believe her name was, wore these kind of fox masks and helped him train. Then it turns out that they were ghosts. But this is what Giyu is talking about. And Tanjiro realizes that his friend had died. saving him from the final selection. And Giryu at this point is, well, guilty because of it. He doesn't feel like he deserves to be in his position. He feels that Sabito would have been better. Now, this is where the dynamic kind of changes a bit between the two, as in canon, Tanjiro was a bit more caring and calm about the situation, but I think in this one, Tanjiro would be a lot more aggressive, not in the sense that he'd be angry, but in the sense that he wants to convince him more, and in that sense, he would tell Giryu that, do you think this is what your friend wanted? For you to just stop doing what you're doing? He let you live. He gave up his life so that you could become stronger. So you're just gonna throw away that opportunity just like that? I don't think your friend would want that, and I certainly don't want that from you. You're obviously strong, and that's the reason why you're a pillar. So what I want you to do is come back and help the rest of us. Giryu, remembering what his friend had did for him way back when, smiles and agrees with Tanjiro. So we could skip a few days, and this is when they actually start training. Now, obviously Tanjiro isn't participating in the training normally, right? He is rather helping those that are falling behind while keeping an eye on the top demon slayers. This is also around the same time in where Tamio would get a letter from the Demon Corp talking about how they want her help despite her being a demon, which is a surprise to her. As Tanjiro's going throughout the different training camps helping out other people, he notices that Genya is talking to his brother, the Wind Pillar, and it's getting very aggressive. They're talking about how Genya has no talent and that he should just quit, but then Genya talks about how he could still fight and that he even ate other demons to help Tanjiro. Now, this is when the Wind Pillar gets very angry and decides to hurt Genya in a way in where he can never recover, but before that could really happen, Tanjiro stops him. Instead of in the normal canon where he basically tackles Genya to get him out of the way, instead he grabs the Wind Pillar's arm, similar to how he did to Genya at the beginning of the series, and he says, "Stop." But the way that he says it is rather confusing to them. He says it very calm-like. Now the Wind Pillar is surprised that Tanjiro was so fast and he was able to stop his hit, but then basically breaks away from his grip and says, "This is a family issue, so Tanjiro, don't stick your nose into other people's business." Tanjiro then says, "I heard what you said about your brother. He might not have talent, but he's still fighting the demons out there. He's risking his life, so don't force him to quit. I was out there with him when we fought the higher moons. He deserves to be in the Demon Corp." After saying this, the Wind Pillar turns around before saying, "Genya, you need to quit. You have no talent and you're gonna get yourself killed, so you might as well just leave before someone else dies in your place." Alright, so that's gonna be the end of the video. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please give it a like, and while you're at it, please subscribe, as that really does help out the channel. And if you made it to the end of the video, please comment down CS so I know you support the channel. If you want to support the channel in other ways, I do have a Patreon at patreon.com/ComicSansTheMan. There you get my videos early, as well as get a drawing from me each month, depending if you are the winner for that month. So if you want to get a higher chance of getting a drawing, the higher tiers are more likely as less people will be in them. Anyways, with that being said, let's give a shout out to the patrons over on Patreon. So in our gold tier, we have Nippy Director, Kenny, Dwayne Fenn, and Aliko. So if you want to join them, it'll be linked in the description. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. And with that, it's gonna be the video. So yeah.